All right, and here we go. We're in our daily recap. Really, quite an exciting day. So let's just get straight into it. We'll start here in our IWM, which has been just on a tear, up 20% over the last 2 weeks. So we see down 3.3%, gapping a little after hours, not much, but a huge bearish engulfing candle, right? Huge bearish engulfing candle. This is a great short here due to this bearish engulfing. I like the candle a lot. I love that we basically hit this trend line today from this time a year ago or so. This just really nice, what clear support for a while turned resistance. You can just see it all the way from beginning here, and then I mean we must have just been so close. What's the high here? 144.74, and this is at 145, so really close here in the IWM. Let's go to our S&P 500. We're gonna go on both the 5-minute as well as the our daily chart. So let's go to the daily first here. In the daily, we're seeing some level of what feels potentially toppish. Again, ran straight into a price level 307.13. We had a high of 306.84. Targeting this gap on any downward move. So there's certainly that. Let's get into the 5-minute. You see here really just buying pressure throughout the day, really just riding this 9 EMA pretty much all day after this initial down move. We see just really strong pressure all day, and then we hear the announcement for tomorrow's press conference, and then major 5 candle. We see a little bit of support come in, 2 really strong 5-minute candles, and then we end basically at the low of the day. We get a new low down here at 302.26, and then after hours we've been we've been slowly giving up some of those gains. We'll see. I mean, we've had almost nightly. I think there are pretty significant stats out there right now that almost all of these gains have occurred in overnight sessions, and so we're gonna want to watch the overnight session. But we are certainly seeing if there's any legitimate to this kind of move right here. It's pretty, I mean, we're seeing these borderline flash, 2 or 3%, 1%, 2% moves. We see it here at the beginning of the day, here at the end of the day, and we'll see what happens after hours. We're giving up this 9 EMA, but we'll see what happens. We're basically even. We go into our ES minis, down a little bit on the minis, but we'll see what happens there. As we look at some other important things, let's take a look at our VIX. Still increased volatility. This is important even while the VIX was up. So let's go to the 5-minute as well here. So we see here at this, basically, I put on a spread right down here at the low of the day in VIX, high of the day in SPX. Really nailed the top quite nicely. At about 158 is when I put on my spread. But as you can see, for the SPY to be up and us barely be, there were times today in which the VIX and the SPX, SPY were up, both of them on the day, and so that's problematic. It's problematic. It tells me that this move is not not believed right now. That people are beginning to price in and expect a downward move. One of the things that I always watch for, and it usually doesn't fail too often, is when SPY and VXX are up in the same day, right? You'll see it much more often, but you sometimes see SPY, SPX, and VIX all down on the same day, that's much more likely, especially when we're in extraordinarily high periods of contango. What you don't see as often is SPY and VXX up on the day very, very often. And so I always pay attention to that, especially as kind of just a informal topping indicator for me. I tend to pay pretty close attention to that, and I saw it throughout the day today. Okay. Let's go to the IWM. Really strong bearish engulfing candle, ran straight into this pretty lengthy trend line all the way back to the middle of 2019. So we see all of this, so pretty significant candle there. Still got quite a lot of, quite a lot of things happening there. Let's go back. We'll go to our Qs. Interesting day here in the Qs. Basically even up a little, just a penny or two after hours. Looks like a rotation back potentially into tech. So certainly watching that. Okay. But otherwise, we're really just taking a look now at our positions. So let's go through some of these and see what happened. It's no doubt that I've been a little bearish, and so this certainly helped my portfolio today. I have a couple of positions, specifically XHB, which has gone on a pretty significant tear, XRT and XME, all subsectors of the SPY that, I certainly need a little bit of a down move. It's went beyond most of my break-evens, and even after a couple of ladders and a couple of adjustments, I'm certainly hopeful for a couple of percent move down by June expiration. So EEM down on the day. EWZ down pretty significantly. EWZ real huge top. We broke out significantly, so we're going to be watching this area as an area of resistance. So we can even draw or support, excuse me. So we're going to be watching this area because we see such a huge bit right there is pretty significant support, and then this gap right here. So going to be watching there in EWZ pretty significantly. FXI unchanged. This is good for me. Here's our break evens. So looking to see FXI continue to operate within those areas. GDX, I saw a lot of people calling the top here in GDX. Nice, really nice call there on the GDX. So have our marks. GDX actually looks really good. As I wait for, okay, I don't want my minis. I don't have a position in the minis. Here we are. GDX, there's our December position. And here's our August position. August looks just really solid, right? And that's going to come off here pretty soon. Certainly, I anticipate in the next couple of days that'll get me there. So looking certainly next week, provided that we don't get too much movement, we'll get this bad boy off. Get this bad boy off next week, which is exciting. Okay, so we keep going down. Gold, gold has a little bit of support. Seeing a little bit of support, but this 161 relatively unchanged, 0.3%. IYR, really just look at IYR, just a crazy move. This is interesting. I'm actually expecting us to fill this gap at some point. We've got two gaps. It's pretty reflective. This 14th was ever since the 14th, pretty much all the sectors in the US have been, and this is iShares, but basically the same chart pattern. We go IYR. Let's go XHB. Chart pattern 14th, gap. Boom. Huge bearish engulfing candle, though. Huge bearish engulfing candle. I really like to see this in XHB. XLE doesn't quite look the same, but there you go. 14th, the day after gap, and then gap, right? We go XLY again. This isn't going to look quite, but there's your 14th gap. And then there should be a gap and there was a gap, right? So three days back. gap. I mean, you can just sit there and look. 14th, 3 days ago, gap day. So in between the 15th and then the gap up on Monday, right? I mean, it's crazy how these charts look so similar. In between that weekend, between the 15th and 18th, gap 3 days ago. You go here, in between the 15th and 18th gap, and then 3 days ago, there's a gap right here, but the gap in XLV didn't stick, which is important. This showed pretty significant weakness. XLY, let's see if we get it to 14. So in between the 15th and the 18th gap, 3 days ago gap, right? XME, let's see the same thing happen. Gap between the 15th and the 18th, gap, even though this gap wasn't as strong and held, right? And then XRT, let's see this. All right, in between the 15th and the 18th, there's that gap, 3 days ago gap, huge bearish engulfing candle here today, down 2.6%. I mean, I like it. You know, I need this move, right? I mean, when you're selling options, it's hard to see this type of, this type of gap. And especially here, I mean, we're seeing it since the 14th, so that's literally 2 weeks ago. That Thursday, just a huge gap here, huge gap. And so it's really where we're at, and we're just kind of navigating through, maybe trying to fill these gaps up. I think that today, especially at the end of the day, we saw just significant, significant movement. I mean, there's these candles, but even here, right, we saw pretty much an all-day fader in XRT. I mean, you see kind of the same thing. You see this high, and then you see kind of an all-day fader. Let's go to XLY, all-day fader, after afternoon. So, I mean, you see these huge candles at the end of the day, but throughout the day too, you saw pretty significant selling pressure just throughout the day. And so I think it's important to watch. I think it's important for us to just keep on lock. So on the whole, though, we saw weakness. We saw weakness today in the SPY in our major markets, right? Especially beginning here at this 310 candle. Yep. So we see here just massive selling into the end of the day. Let's see what happens. We are basically now even potentially going under here in the SPY, so we're going to be paying attention to that, see if there's follow through into the last day of the trading week. Okay, see if this euphoria, and if we get a little bit of a retracement, it certainly would not surprise me if we begin to move in that direction, but we still certainly want to pay attention. Thinking for us here at Sell That Option, we're moving into looking really heavily into August expiration now. We've got July set up, and we're just letting those positions roll. We're finishing up June positions where we're kind of cleaning up, waiting for the last little bit to happen with our June positions. And August and September, we're building out right now, and even some of them are getting ready to come off. So really, all good stuff happening here. We did trade one new position in SPY, which we alerted to members. So, we're just going to continue to rock it and continue to operate with efficiency in this market, and, kind of just take what it gives us and keep trying to make some money. So if you all have any questions, reach out to me at Ryan, RYAN, at Sell That Option. Otherwise, we're just going to keep doing it. So happy trading, folks.